Chad, it is an absolutely massive week in America. Week 10 for NFL, week 11 for college football is here. Of course, those are the major events going on in this country right now. And we're here to break it all down, give you our best bets, and hopefully you guys win some money off our picks. Chad, how are you feeling about NFL and college football going ahead as we now head into the second half of both seasons?
I think that I am optimistic about the second half here. Had a pretty rough go, as we've mentioned before. Last week, some of the lines changed a little bit. I followed some of the money a little bit different. Had a better week gambling than I did picking on this show. So just want to mention, oftentimes I'll have separate picks in my Chad D's Swinging NFL picks each week. Typically come out on Thursday. I've got another Thursday night pick this week, so stay tuned for that. 2-0 in the last weeks there, so let's go make some money. Also wanted to kind of give a shout out to all the degenerates out there that bet on the general election last night. Found some offshore betting sites, a lot of money moved. So if you were involved in that, man, what an exciting time to be alive.
It's insane the amount of things that you're able to bet on, and what's craziest of all is that Indiana football has continued to be a cash cow wagon for all gambling this season. You know, it's really time to break out the red hats, the red Indiana hats. You know, they are 9-0 now on the season, 9-0 against the spread. And every single week, it just feels like an absolute beatdown. You know, last week they played Michigan State. I was on Indiana on this show. And for the first time all season, Indiana gave up the lead. It took 9 weeks for some team to actually be ahead of them on the scoreboard. Michigan State got off to an early 10-0 start before Indiana just rallied off 47 unanswered points on Michigan State's defense. Now Michigan comes to town, big time environment headed for Indiana. This is a team that, even though they're a really down year for Michigan, this is still one of the powerhouse programs in the conference, a team that Indiana has had a lot of animosity, and I don't necessarily say a rivalry with, but there's no love lost between Indiana and Michigan. The college football playoff rankings officially came out. Indiana was ranked 8th in those rankings. That feels very low, honestly, for a team that looks like one of the best teams in the country. I know the main reason is because of strength of schedule, and Michigan doesn't really help with that. But the low ranking, Indiana probably deserves to be top 5 as an undefeated Big Ten team who's won every single game by at least 14 points. You got to think that's going to help with the coaching for Cignetti to get them super motivated for this game. Michigan continues to not have a quarterback. Davis Warren did look all right last week, but, you know, Oregon still went out, took care of business, won by 21. I think that Indiana's offense is one of the best in the entire country. Remember, I've been saying on this show for weeks and weeks, this is not just the most efficient offense in the country. This is one of the most efficient offenses in the last 10 years in all of college football. This team is healthy. Curtis Rourke looked good coming off that thumb injury. This is just a wagon that we're going to continue to bet on every single game. I know it's moved to 14.5 on some books. It was kind of fluctuating back and forth between 14 and 14.5 on BroThrow. Either is fine. Indiana's win this game by 30, but my official pick, Indiana minus 14. We continue to ride with the Hoosiers.
Yeah, here we are again, Jake. New week, same thing. Depending on where you look, like you mentioned, this team is 9-0 against the spread, which is incredible. I mean, there's a couple other teams that played, really well against the spread, like BYU as one to mention. But just keep making money, everybody. It's as simple as that. Ride them till they buck you. I'm going to follow you again. I'm going to make a little bit of money, hopefully this week. But one thing that you mentioned, they finally cracked the top 10. And I was going to ask you that. I'd written that down in my notes. Looking at the 7 teams ahead, Jake, are they, who's snubbing them? Like, where's the discrepancy here?
I mean, you look at Tennessee, you look at Penn State, those teams both have losses. Indiana does not. You look at Texas, they have a loss. I could see them being ahead of all those teams. I mean, when you go back and look at Texas's schedule, the Michigan win looks pretty bad in retrospect. I mean, obviously a win is a win, but Michigan is not a quality opponent. Oklahoma, they've been looking pretty devastating as well. So, they have a loss to Georgia where they got kind of blown out. They barely beat Vanderbilt on the road last week, so that is an official ranked win that is on the resume. But that technically is the first ranked win for Texas this season, given that Oklahoma and Michigan are now out of the polls. So I know there's like all the name brand stuff, but it really feels like if Indiana had the Michigan logo next to them, they'd be ranked not just in the top 5, but potentially number 1 right now.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on from my team in college to what has been a cash cow, we're headed to your favorite team in the NFL. Eagles taking on the Cowboys. What do you think about this game as a Dallas Cowboys fan, and what do you think about it as a bettor?
If you have watched this show this season, you'll notice that I have never had one of these plays. This is my lock of the year. My favorite bet so far. I'm gonna tick off some guys, but it's just the reality of the situation. As a Cowboys fan, I feel like I have more intimate. I wouldn't say knowledge, but I would say that I have a more intimate understanding of where this team is at as an organization, and also just on the field. I pay attention to Dallas radio. I pay attention to all of the guys online that talk about this, talk about trades, talk about acquisition of players, all things Cowboys. I think Jerry has quit on this team. I 100% think he told Dak he was sitting. Dak went and got a second opinion. There were reports of him could barely walk up the stairs on the plane. Like, the guy's hurt. But Jerry came out and said Dak's sitting. He was probably going to go on IR. Jerry's quit on Mike McCarthy. Zimmer's throwing Diggs under the bus, and rightfully so. It's just they're in a bad place. And I think that on the opposite end of that spectrum, the Eagles have a shot to win their division. They're probably still a little ticked off last year that the Cowboys stole it from when they lost 6 in a row at the end of the season last year. They're playing really well. They have Saquon Barkley, one of the best NFL running backs in the game. Hurts is playing incredible. The defense has stepped it up a little bit. Their offensive line, it seems to be completely healthy. Lane Johnson had a scare at the beginning of the season, and they're starting to click. And I just think that the Eagles are going to walk into AT&T Stadium, and they're going to stomp all over the Cowboys. Cooper Rush is not going to have an answer. He's going to have a long day. Saquon Barkley's also going to have a long day, but for better reasons. And I just don't think it's going to be close. And this is going to be my biggest bet of the year, likely. This is not an emotional hedge. This is strictly coming straight from the brain.
Yeah, Dak Prescott being out definitely is going to put this team in a very difficult spot on offense. They basically had no running game to begin with. And now with Cooper Rush coming in, it's just going to be a lot of pressure on him to, make the throws down the field to guys like CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson, Tolbert. But, the only thing that's kind of concerning to me here is that this line feels pretty low. Exactly as you said, Dallas is in complete shambles. They're on a backup quarterback. They're injured. Philly is looking pretty good. So why is this line only 7, 6.5, 7 some places? Feels like this should be at least a 10-point spread. So I feel like you're dead on here. It should be an Eagles bet. I know in the NFL, it's not like there's scrubs that are taking their spot. These are all professional athletes that are getting paid, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to play football. But I'm very concerned about where Dallas is going to pick up any points from unless Cooper Rush starts showing a lot of ability that he has heretofore not shown in the NFL. I agree with the point about the coaching staff. I think the players have quit on the team. I think the coaches have quit on the team, and the players certainly don't like the coaches, which is an absolute recipe for disaster. So I agree with you. I think this is an Eagles play. It's a fade Dallas spot. And I think that as long as Dak is out, we can continue to see a lot of fading Dallas in the future. But speaking about fading teams where the coaching staff and the players have completely quit on each other, let's go from your favorite team to my favorite team, because I feel the exact same way about my Chicago Bears. 2 weeks ago, I picked the Bears on this show to win the game against Washington. And it looked horrible the entire game up until the very end where the Bears finally took the lead with 30 seconds to go or whatever. And then they gave up just a disgusting Hail Mary to lose the game. And it felt like that was the turning point of the season. It felt like that is the moment where the players are done with the coaches. The coaches have already been kind of on thin ice. We heard a report earlier in the season where DJ Moore and Caleb Williams and a few of the other offensive players had to go to their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, and be like, yo, what's going on here? Like, why are we not being more aggressive? Why are we not throwing the ball down the field, et cetera, et cetera? And, the Bears were doing well on defense, led by head coach Matt Eberflus. But after that awful defensive performance on that Hail Mary, last week was really not that good for the Chicago Bears. They got kind of destroyed, in my opinion, going up against... Who was it last week? Up against the Cardinals. That's right, it was the Cardinals. 29-9. The Bears couldn't do anything on offense. Williams looked bad. There was a play where, he was scrambling around the pocket, and he finally got free of the rushers, reset to throw, and DJ Moore is just sitting out of bounds. He'd already quit on the play, and this is supposed to be one of the captains, one of the leaders of the team. So the defense kind of fell apart. The offense is in shambles. Laying 6 to the Patriots. I know the Patriots suck, but Drake May has looked pretty good as a rookie in his first couple games, especially running the ball. I think he had 80 yards rushing last week. And I just can't give away 6 points with a Bears team that has basically quit on all of its coaches and is in complete shambles right now. So just as you love fading your Cowboys, I love the idea of fading my Bears this week. I'm on Patriots +6.
Okay. Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you here. And I've mentioned my system. There's a couple data points I use my system. One of the things is the NFL power rankings. And based on my numbers, that's the main one. There's a couple other data points that I kind of put in, and it's really it's not a sophisticated system, but it's worked the last couple of years. Based on my numbers, the Bears should probably be a bigger favorite here. I think that the Cardinals are one of those teams that is just sneaky good. They find ways to win. Kyler Murray's been playing pretty good. They have a great run game. Their defense is much better than we thought it might be this year. But I say all to say, you have to ask yourself where this discrepancy comes from this line. Like I mentioned, I think it should be bigger. And I think maybe the key to that is Drake May, like you mentioned. He's been a huge upgrade for this offense over Jacoby Brissett, who's always been a good stand-in whenever they need a quarterback. He's won some games. He tends to play well some days and not some other days, but he's not a legitimate starting quarterback. And what I mean by that is there's no team that signed him and said, this is our guy. He just always kind of hangs around and plugs in where they need. So I think that Drake May is an upgrade here. He's got a lot of young weapons, Douglas, Polk, some of those guys that are showing up and playing for him. So I think the Bears are having, like you mentioned, a few locker room distractions. The talk about DJ Moore quitting, some of the coaching, I guess, separations from the players. Obviously, the huge play at the end of the game against the Commanders was just demoralizing, both for fans, players, everybody on the team. So I think there's going to be a little bit of that. And once again, I think just 6 points in the NFL is a large number. And I'm going to go ahead and take the points where they're giving us here.
Especially with an over-under of only 38.5 implies this is going to be a low-scoring game. And in low-scoring games, you want to take the points, generally speaking. But moving to the Thursday night game, Bengals and the Ravens, this one could be a lot higher scoring of a game with an over-under of 53 and a Ravens -6 line here. What are you seeing in this Thursday night primetime game?
So this Ravens defense isn't necessarily the Ravens defense of years past. They've got some issues in the secondary. They've given up a lot of yards, a lot of points to a lot of different teams, and now they're facing Joe Burrow, who's one of the best passers in the league. They've definitely had some down games, but I feel like Joe Burrow's really getting rolling. How do I know that? Well, I've played him every week in fantasy football, where he just threw for 4 touchdowns and 350 yards. It's been incredible. Bad luck for me. But both of these teams have quarterbacks that know how to score and are scoring this season. You've got your MVP frontrunner, Lamar Jackson, who's having an incredible season already, both on the ground and in the air. He's working with an offensive line that is 3 players different from last year, and he's still delivering. He's been incredible. So I think that this is going to be a huge divisional matchup, obviously, for the rankings in the division. And I think that both of these teams are going to show up on primetime Thursday. And I think there's just going to be a boat race, not just the quarterbacks, but obviously Derrick Henry. He's in Baltimore now. He's having an incredible season, one of the best seasons of his life. And he's actually my MVP long shot favorite. I think I got him at +6,000, and I'm loving that. I mean, I'd hate to see anything happen to any players, but you're one high ankle sprain away with Lamar Jackson, one concussion away from knocking him out of a game or two, and Derrick Henry takes over. And again, I only say that to say that they have 2 guys who could legitimately win the MVP. They're going to score a lot of points, and I expect the 53 over to be a good call this week.
Yeah, they played earlier this season. Final score 41-38. Almost 80 combined points between these two. Both these teams' defense rank in the bottom half in yards per game. And I love this pick here. I know that Thursday night games, generally speaking, are lower scoring, but it feels like this one is a massive shootout potential. These teams are very familiar with each other. They know the strengths and the weaknesses, and they've already managed to exploit the weaknesses on defense. As you said, Lamar is having an incredible season. Well, he absolutely went off against the Bengals in their first matchup this year. He had, 348 yards passing, 4 passing touchdowns, also added 55 yards on the ground. And then Burrow, not to be outdone, had almost 400 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. So neither of these teams' defenses could stop the pass. I think that's probably going to continue as well. Maybe the Ravens are going to want to use Henry a little bit more to, control the clock and run a little bit more with Lamar to, keep the Bengals offense on the sideline. But 53 points, that's really not that much to ask for between these two teams. That's what, like a 28-27 kind of game. That's 55 points right there. Mm-hmm. I think each of these teams could score 4 touchdowns. I mean, we had 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone in this game earlier this season. So it probably won't be in the 80s, but I do think that this game comfortably does get over this 53 number. And after Joe Burrow plays this game on Thursday night, it is pretty likely he'll be flying to Baton Rouge for a massive matchup on Saturday. Bama heading to LSU. LSU are 3-point dogs at home in this spot. And that's a pretty surprising line to me. When LSU was a home dog a couple weeks ago to Ole Miss, I was all over them in that game. They won that game outright. LSU has one of the best home field environments in all of college football. I would even say they're number 1, especially when it's a night game against a big-time opponent. And Alabama is about the biggest opponent you can ask for coming into town. They may be a little bit down this year as opposed to the Nick Saban years, but that's not going to matter for the fans. They're going to get super hyped up for this game. And in fact, them being a little bit in a down year is a good thing for the LSU team in general. Garrett Nussmeier has been a very, very strong quarterback this year. LSU has some really, really good receivers. Their defense is a little bit weaker, but I think that this game is going to be a high-scoring affair, right? We have a 58.5 over-under. We're probably going to see both these teams score in the 30+. And I think that LSU at home, I love getting the points here in a spot where they haven't lost, I believe, since 2020 or 2021 at home at night. They're also coming off a loss on the road to Texas A&M, so they should be fired up and having a good week of practice with the coaches being able to really lay into them after a 15-point loss to Texas A&M. I was pretty high on Bama to start the year. I'm a big fan of Kalen DeBoer, but I think that this team is not as strong as I initially thought they were going to be, and I actually kind of like LSU outright here to get it done. I'm taking LSU +3. Give me the points at night and Baton Rouge and Death Valley every single time.
Yeah. So obviously this is the game of the week. There's some other great games going on this week, but anytime Alabama and LSU match up at night, like you mentioned, in Death Valley, it's going to be huge. It's going to have huge ratings. It's going to be a lot of money on this game. It's one of the games that I look forward to every year. Being an Arkansas fan, never being a part of a big game. So kind of have to live vicariously through these two fan bases. So I would say that Alabama obviously has had somewhat of an uncharacteristically inconsistent year, right? I didn't expect Alabama to lose another game after Vanderbilt. They turned around 2 weeks later and they lost to Tennessee. Tennessee's been good. Yeah, obviously they dropped one to Arkansas in a crazy game, but I didn't expect that. I expected them to beat Tennessee, lost, and then they showed up and smashed Missouri, another top 25 team. Missouri's been a little bit disappointing this year, right? I think I bet the over at the beginning of the year, which I think still can happen, but they've just been a hard team to cap, and LSU and Bama have generally been similar on offense. On one hand, you've got pass-heavy offense with Garrett Nussmeier, who's looked great this year, and on the other hand, you've got a more balanced pass rush offense with Jalen Milroe leading. And I think actually that Bama is going to show up this week. Like you said, the +3 at home LSU is an odd line. I think that there may be some sentiment that they caught a stride last week, but there's going to be a hangover. I don't think there's going to be a hangover. I think that they actually, like I mentioned, found that stride, beating Missouri, putting their boot on that throat and just pressing down. And I do think that there may be a little bit of a hangover with LSU, after kind of having a poor outing with A&M. So I'm actually going to roll with Bama this week and lay the points.
Well, if you want to ride with me on LSU or you want to ride with Chad on Bama, go to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up today for absolutely free. BroThrow has the best prices on the market, +100 odds for every spread and over-under that we've talked about in this video, and that's listed for every league. NBA, MLB, well, MLB's over, but NFL, college basketball is back, college football, MMA, golf, every sport that you want to bet on is available on BroThrow, so go ahead and sign up now for free. Chad, the last game we're going to talk about in this video, we're going to hop back to the NFL and hop across the pond. A little overseas early morning action. Giants taking on Carolina. The very exciting, Daniel Jones versus Bryce Young product to really bring in those overseas fans. Because what better way to convert them to being big NFL fans than giving Daniel Jones versus Bryce Young? What do you see here in this game?
This game was one of my strong system plays. Take that for what it's worth. And like I mentioned, there's a couple of data points in there that were just flashing Giants. It's kind of weird because you don't look at the Giants this season and think this is a good team, but you certainly don't look at the Panthers and don't think that they're a bad team, right? So, they sold off Deontay Johnson. They gave Bryce Young another shot. Is he the guy? Don't know. We'll find out, but it doesn't look like it right now. And I just certainly think that the Giants are going to have a big day up front on defense. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns have had good seasons, and I think that Bryce Young's going to have a very long day. While I also think that rookie Tyrone Tracy Jr., rookie Malik Neighbors are also going to have big days. And I just think that this is kind of reading a blowout to me. And it seems like whenever they're overseas, there's a little bit of lag. The offenses don't seem to really look like they do in the States for whatever reason. So you got to give a lean to the defense. And for me, that's the Giants here. I can see them easily winning by a touchdown, and that's going to be the role.
Bryce Young has been back for 2 weeks. Andy Dalton was in a car accident. He's fine, no real injuries, but they went back to Bryce Young. And these last 2 games have been his best 2 of the season, and maybe even the best 2 of his career. He had 224 yards 2 weeks ago, 171 yards last week, a total of 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, which I know doesn't sound great as a 2-game sample size, but that is his best performance of the year. I mean, he had 0 touchdowns up until that game 2 weeks ago against Denver. So if Bryce Young is playing a little bit better, and I actually am a big fan of Carolina's offensive line, they're one of the more underrated units in the league. I believe they're a top 5 rated offensive line according to Pro Football Focus. That could put some damper on the Giants' pass rush. But the big concern with Carolina, as you said, is where are the weapons coming from? They traded Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen's still injured. They also traded Jonathan Mingo to your Cowboys for a 4th-round pick, one of the most egregious trade deadline moves, I thought. How did he go for more than Devontae Adams? Well, not Devontae Adams. DeAndre Hopkins go for? I know that he's a young guy and all that, but it felt like a bad trade by the Cowboys. But where are the weapons on Carolina? They have Xavier Legette. They have Jalen Coker. They have Chuba Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks may be coming back. But if Bryce Young is, truly on this new mindset, this new mentality, this new wave of play, I can see them covering the 5.5. But as you said, these overseas games are kind of funky, and I could see this one easily being kind of like a 27-3 kind of game where the Giants just roll through them. The Giants have a new running back in Tyrone Tracy, who has now taken over the lead back role from Devin Singletary. He looks a lot better than Singletary, and the Giants' run game looks pretty decent with him as the lead back. So I do like the Giants here in this game, but I think it's going to be a stay away from me because of all the funky stuff that could happen with this early overseas game. But that is going to do it for this edition of the Bro Show. Again, if you want to bet on any of the games that we mentioned in this video or any others in the world of NBA, college basketball, NFL, college football, go to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up for absolutely free. Chad, anything else you want to leave the viewers with before we end this one off?
Nope, I think we've covered it. Other than just check your email. You'll get that flyer about the Chad D's Big Swing and Picks. Hopefully we can continue the trend. Had a winning week last week, and good luck.
Absolutely. We'll see everybody in the next one. Sign up for the Chad D's Picks, and we will take care. Peace.